A black teenager, just 17, walked into a room dripping with wealth and scorn. They laughed, called her the janitor's kid, a nobody in their gilded world. But she carried a secret so shattering it would topple their empire in moments. Why was she there, sitting quietly, as their insults rained down? The truth would expose their cruelty and rewrite their legacy in ways they never imagined. Stick with this story. It'll grip your soul. The Atlanta law office gleamed with cold elegance, its polished surfaces reflecting the Thompson family's arrogance. Amara, in a faded sweater, stood apart, her dark curls framing a face calm but unyielding. Who let the janitor in? Nathan, the nephew, sneered, his voice sharp as glass. Evelyn, his aunt, adorned in pearls, chuckled, assuming Amara sought charity. To them, she was nothing, invisible. Yet Amara's gaze locked on an empty chair, her silence hiding a strength they couldn't see, a resolve forged in years of being overlooked. Why would a lawyer invite a janitor's daughter to sit at the head of the table? The Thompson family's sneers sharpened as Amara took her place. Nathan leaned forward, his cufflinks glinting, and hissed, "This is private. Get her out." Evelyn's nails tapped, her laugh cold. "She's lost," she said, waving Amara off. Their words stung, but Amara sat steady, her eyes on the lawyer. Daniel Harper, his face stern, set a briefcase down. "Miss Amara," he said, calm but firm, pointing to the chair beside him. Silence gripped the room. Nathan's glass shook. Evelyn's purse fell. Who was this girl? And what power did she hold? What kind of man leaves a secret that could destroy his own family? The Atlanta law office grew tense as Daniel Harper flicked a switch. A screen lit up, revealing James Thompson, his face worn, but eyes fierce. "If you're watching this," he rasped, "I'm gone. And you're waiting for my wealth." The room froze. Nathan's jaw tightened. Evelyn gripped her pearls and Sarah glanced at Amara, her eyes lingering a moment longer. "First, a question," James said sharply. "Can you name Clara's daughter, our janitor of 20 years? Silence fell. Nathan shifted. Evelyn stared down. Sarah's phone slipped. "I thought so," James said, smiling sadly. "Amara's worked here since 12, scrubbing floors while you sipped champagne. You never learned her name." Amara's eyes glistened, her chin high, unshaken by their cruelty. James's voice hardened. "I saw you treat her as nothing, like you did drivers, cooks, the people who built our empire." His words stung, a truth they couldn't deny. "Amara was different," he said. "She studied late, cared for her sick mother, read every book in my library. Her dignity was something you never grasped." Evelyn flushed. Sarah's guilt flickered. James leaned in, his voice firm. "Your indifference showed your character. You thought legacy was your birthright. It's not. It's compassion, seeing those you ignored." The screen dimmed, his words heavy. Amara sat still, her silence powerful. The Thompsons glanced uneasily, their world shifting. What did James see in her? And what did it mean for them? How could a teenager hold the keys to an empire built on greed? Daniel Harper pulled a sealed envelope from his briefcase, the Thompson family tense, James's words lingering. Harper's voice was steady. "We read the final will of James Thompson, deceased 4 weeks ago." Nathan leaned in, expecting his fortune. Evelyn adjusted her scarf uneasy. Sarah stared at Amara, who sat calm, hands folded, unshaken by hostility. Harper opened the envelope. "To my family, I leave minority shares, under strict conditions." Nathan frowned. Evelyn's lips parted. "To Amara Johnson, daughter of Clara, I leave 60% of Thompson Enterprises, the Buckhead residence, and properties in Appendix B, worth $30 million. The room exploded. Nathan leapt up, chair scraping. "Absurd!" he shouted. "She manipulated him." Evelyn gasped. "She's a nobody," she hissed. Sarah's eyes widened, her phone forgotten. Amara stayed still, eyes on Harper. Nathan pointed, venomous. "You're just a janitor's kid." Harper raised a hand. "The will is binding, notarized, witnessed," he said firmly. "James was sound. Fight it and you'll lose more." Nathan paced, bitter. "This won't stand." Evelyn's voice rose. "We'll fight to the end." Amara spoke, soft but clear. "Your family didn't build this, Mr. Nathan. James did, from nothing, selling papers on Peachtree. You inherited wealth, not work." Her words, a steady force, silenced them. Nathan reddened. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Sarah showed faint respect. Harper continued. "Amara takes control at 21, with a board managing until then." Nathan scoffed, his defiance weak. Amara met Harper's gaze, a quiet understanding shared. She hadn't sought this, but her dignity left the Thompsons reeling, their world in the hands of the girl they scorned. How could a girl with nothing give away a fortune most would kill for? Amara's words silenced the Thompsons' outrage. Daniel Harper adjusted his glasses. "The properties in Appendix B aren't mansions," he said firmly. "They're Atlanta lands taken by your family decades ago." Nathan's eyes narrowed. Evelyn snapped. "Those are our assets." Harper's voice was steady. "They were stolen from communities displaced by your factories, left in poverty for your wealth." Amara stood, eyes on Nathan. "Those lands aren't yours. I've returned them to their rightful owners." Evelyn gasped. "You're ruining our legacy," she shouted. Nathan slammed the table. "You'll destroy us." Sarah stared at Amara, awed. Amara's voice stayed calm. "It's not ruin. It's justice. Those families deserve their homes." Harper opened a folder. "Over 200 families get deeds next week." Nathan growled. "You're throwing away millions." Amara met his gaze. "Money from suffering isn't wealth. It's a debt I'm settling." Evelyn's voice shook. "Those lands are half our portfolio." Amara replied evenly. "Your portfolio came from stolen lives." "I'm giving back what was taken." Sarah whispered. "How did you know?" Amara didn't answer, looking to Harper. He closed the folder. James traced their history, documented the displaced. Amara stood tall, her sweater stark against their suits, commanding the room. "This isn't about taking. It's about returning what's right." The Thompsons sat silent, facing a truth they couldn't escape. Amara's choice would reshape lives. What kind of evidence could strip a family of their pride in a single moment? The Thompson family sat in stunned silence, Amara's decision to return their stolen lands burning in their minds. Daniel Harper reached for a flash drive, his movements deliberate, his face unreadable. "James left another video," he said, his voice calm but heavy with intent. "He insisted it be shown if his will was questioned." The screen flickered again, and James appeared, frailer than before, his eyes sharp with purpose. "If you're seeing this," he began, his voice rasping, "you're doubting my choice. Let me be clear. I was of sound mind, and Amara didn't manipulate me." Nathan scoffed, but his bravado faltered. Evelyn's hands trembled, her pearls clicking softly. Sarah's gaze fixed on the screen, her earlier shock deepening. James leaned forward, his voice cutting through the room. "Amara refused a $1 million offer to sell company records, documents exposing our family's past. She chose truth over money, something you never did. The Thompsons froze, the revelation landing like a blow. Harper pressed a button, and the screen shifted to grainy footage. Nathan berating a driver, his voice dripping with contempt. Another clip showed Evelyn firing Clara, Amara's mother, for requesting medical leave, her laughter cold as she walked away. Sarah's face crumpled as a video played of her mocking a janitor, unaware it was Amara's cousin. Each scene was a dagger, exposing their cruelty in stark detail. James's voice returned, steady and unforgiving. I recorded these moments over years, watching how you treated those beneath you. You saw them as tools, not people. Nathan's jaw clenched, his earlier rage replaced by shame. Evelyn stared at the floor, her arrogance shattered. Sarah's eyes glistened, her hands covering her mouth. James's image flickered back, his gaze piercing. Amara saw what you didn't. She sat with me, shared her dreams of justice, of a world where no one's invisible. She didn't want my money. She hesitated to accept it. The room grew still, the weight of his words pressing down. Harper paused the video, his voice breaking the silence. James documented everything, including your actions after his diagnosis. He knew you'd fight this. Nathan's voice cracked as he muttered, "This can't be legal." Harper's eyes met his, unyielding. "It's all verified." James anticipated your every move. Amara sat quietly, her hands folded, her face serene, but her eyes alive with resolve. She hadn't sought this fight, but she stood ready to face it. Evelyn's voice wavered, barely a whisper. "Why would he do this to us?" James's final words answered from the screen. "Because you never learned to see beyond yourselves. Amara did. She's not just my heir, she's my hope for a better world." The screen went dark, leaving the Thompsons to grapple with their exposed truth. Amara's silence spoke louder than their protests, her dignity a mirror to their flaws. The room felt smaller, their empire no longer theirs to claim. Could a single confession turn an enemy into an ally? The Atlanta law office was thick with tension. James Thompson's damning videos still searing the Thompsons' pride. Nathan sat rigid, his face a mask of defiance, while Evelyn's hands shook, her once confident smirk gone. Amara remained calm, her eyes steady, her silence a testament to her strength. Then Sarah, the youngest Thompson, stood, her voice trembling but clear. "I was wrong," she said, her words slicing through the heavy air. Every head turned. Nathan's eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. Evelyn gasped, her pearls clicking as she clutched them. "I laughed at Amara," Sarah continued, her voice breaking. "I posted about her online, called her an intruder, but I saw the videos. I saw myself." Her eyes met Amara's, raw with guilt. "I didn't know your name, but I judged you. I'm sorry." The room stilled, the weight of her confession hanging heavy. Amara's gaze softened, a flicker of understanding passing between them. Nathan's voice cut in, sharp and bitter. "You're betraying us, Sarah," he spat, his finger jabbing the air. Evelyn's face twisted, her voice low. "You're weak," siding with her. But Sarah didn't flinch. "I helped Amara," she said, her voice steadier now. "I found files in Dad's office, records of how our family took those lands. I gave them to her." The Thompsons froze, their shock palpable. Nathan's hands balled into fists, his rage barely contained. Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came. Amara nodded slightly, her expression calm but grateful. "Sarah didn't have to help," she said softly, her voice carrying a quiet power. "She chose to, even when it cost her your approval." Sarah's eyes glistened, her shoulders squared despite the weight of her family's scorn. Daniel Harper watched, his face impassive, but his eyes sharp. James knew about Sarah's actions. he said, his tone even. He trusted her to make this choice. Nathan laughed, a hollow sound. "This is a circus. You're all against us." But his voice lacked conviction, his earlier fire dimming. Evelyn turned away, her face pale, as if seeing her daughter for the first time. Sarah stepped closer to Amara, her voice soft but firm. "I don't want to be like them anymore," she said. "I want to learn what you know, Amara. How to see people, really see them." Amara's eyes held Sarah's, a silent acknowledgement of her courage. The room felt smaller, the Thompsons' empire no longer a fortress, but a fragile shell. Sarah's confession wasn't just words. It was a crack in their world, a spark of change no one saw coming. Amara's calm presence stood unwavering, her dignity a challenge to their bitterness. The Thompsons faced a choice, but Sarah had already made hers, stepping into a truth that left her family reeling. How does a teenager reshape an empire while staying true to her heart? Amara stood at the heart of Thompson Enterprises' gleaming Atlanta headquarters, her faded sweater replaced by a simple blazer, her presence commanding yet humble. Around her stood a new board of directors, former employees once discarded by the Thompsons, now radiating quiet confidence. There was Maria, a factory worker fired for unionizing, her eyes sharp with purpose. Beside her, Thomas, a janitor let go for asking for a raise, nodded with resolve. Amara's voice was steady as she addressed them. "This company isn't mine," she said, her words clear and calm. "It belongs to everyone who built it, brick by brick, sweat by sweat." The board murmured in agreement, their faces alive with hope. Amara unveiled her first act as majority shareholder, a profit-sharing program for every employee, from custodians to clerks. "No one will be invisible here anymore," she declared, her voice soft but unwavering. The room buzzed with energy, the weight of her words sinking in. She announced a scholarship fund named for her mother, Clara, to send young people from Atlanta's overlooked neighborhoods to college. Maria stepped forward, her voice warm. "I've worked here 20 years, and no one ever listened to us. Amara did." Thomas added, "She's giving us a voice, not just a paycheck." A journalist in the room, her pen poised, raised a skeptical question. "You're 17, Amara. How can you run a conglomerate with no experience?" The room stilled, all eyes on her. Amara's gaze didn't falter, her response measured but firm. "I don't need to know everything," she said. "I trust the people in this room, people who know this company better than anyone. My job is to listen, to learn, and to keep us focused on what's right." The journalist scribbled furiously, her skepticism softening. Amara turned to the board, her voice carrying a quiet strength. "We're building something new, a company that values every hand that keeps it running." The room erupted in applause, not loud but heartfelt, a sound of trust reborn. Outside, news trucks gathered, reporters whispering about the teenager turning a corporate giant upside down. Amara's vision wasn't just about profit. It was about people, about righting wrongs buried in the company's past. She glanced at a photo of James Thompson on the wall, his eyes seeming to nod in approval. "This is what he wanted," she said softly, almost to herself. "A legacy that lifts everyone." The board members exchanged looks, their belief in her growing. Amara, still so young, carried the weight of their trust with a grace that belied her years. The Thompsons' old world was fading, and in its place rose something new, something fairer, built on the courage of a girl who saw beyond the bottom line. What happens when pride crumbles under the weight of truth? The Atlanta law office had faded from memory, But the Thompson family's reckoning was just beginning. Nathan, once brash and untouchable, stood outside a community center, his tailored suit replaced by a plain jacket, his face etched with defeat. He'd fought Amara's will in court, hiring the best lawyers money could buy. But James's videos, those unrelenting clips of his cruelty, had turned the public against him. His reputation lay in ruins, his name now a synonym for arrogance. He'd joined a social awareness program, not out of choice but necessity, his wealth dwindling with every failed lawsuit. Evelyn, her elegance stripped away, sat alone in her mansion, scrolling through news articles that replayed her callous dismissal of Clara, Amara's mother. The videos James left behind had gone viral, shared across social media, each share a nail in her social standing. She refused Amara's offer to join the program, clinging to her pride. But the invitations to galas had stopped, her friends turning away. Her defiance felt hollow, her world shrinking to the walls of her home. Sarah, though, walked a different path. She stood in a crowded Atlanta community center, handing out flyers for an anti-bias workshop, her eyes bright with purpose. She'd been the first to accept Amara's terms, trading her designer heels for sneakers, her influencer status for something real. "I was blind," she said to a group of volunteers, her voice steady but humble. "Amara showed me what I couldn't see." The volunteers nodded, their faces warm with respect. Sarah's viral post mocking Amara had cost her followers, but her public apology, raw and unfiltered, had sparked a different conversation, one about change, about accountability. Nathan watched her from a distance, his hands stuffed in his pockets, his anger softened by a flicker of envy. He'd scoffed at her choice months ago, but now, seeing her purpose, he wondered if he'd been wrong. Evelyn's voice haunted him, her bitter words ringing in his ears. "We're ruined because of that girl." But Sarah's actions told a different story. She worked alongside Amara's team, rebuilding what her family had broken. The Thompsons' empire still stood, but it was no longer theirs. Amara's vision had taken root, her programs giving voice to those long ignored. Nathan took a step toward the community center, hesitating, his pride warring with a growing realization. Sarah caught his eye and offered a small smile, not triumphant, but inviting. The Thompsons faced a choice: cling to their past, or step into a world reshaped by a girl they'd underestimated. For Sarah, the choice was clear, but for Nathan and Evelyn, the path forward remained uncertain, their futures tied to the lessons they could still learn. How does one girl's vision spark a movement that changes a city? Amara stood before a crowd in southwest Atlanta, the ribbon in her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. Behind her rose the James Thompson Community Center, its glass walls gleaming under the Georgia sun, a beacon where a neglected lot once stood. "This isn't just a building," she said, her voice steady, carrying across the faces of families, workers, and students gathered before her. "It's a promise. To listen. To lift. To make no one invisible." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers warm with hope. Inside, classrooms buzzed with free courses: coding for teens, entrepreneurship for parents, civil rights history for all. Amara cut the ribbon, her smile humble, her eyes reflecting the dreams of those around her. Clara, her mother, stood in the front row, her face glowing with pride, her health restored after years of struggle. "This is for you, Mama," Amara whispered, her voice catching. The center was more than bricks. It was Amara's vision, born from James's trust and her own relentless heart. She'd transformed Thompson Enterprises, its profits now funding scholarships and worker cooperatives, its board a tapestry of voices once silenced. A reporter approached, her microphone gleaming. "Why not punish the Thompsons completely?" she asked, her tone probing. Amara paused, her gaze thoughtful. "Punishment doesn't heal," she said softly. "Understanding does. They're learning, some faster than others." Her words carried a quiet power, a call to see beyond vengeance. Sarah was there, in a simple sweater, handing out water to volunteers, her influencer days a distant memory. Nathan lingered at the crowd's edge, his intern badge glinting, his face softer, his steps toward change tentative but real. Even Evelyn had come, standing apart, her eyes tracing the center's walls, her defiance waning. Amara's gaze swept the crowd, landing on a young girl clutching a notebook, her eyes wide with dreams. "This is for you," Amara said, her voice warm. "For everyone who's been told they don't belong." The girl smiled, her shoulders straightening, a spark igniting. Amara's work wasn't done. She balanced school, the company, and her mother's care. Her days long, but her purpose clear. Profits at Thompson Enterprises had climbed, the employee programs boosting morale and innovation. "It's proof," Amara said to the board later, "that fairness isn't just right, it's strong." The crowd began to disperse, but the energy lingered, a ripple of hope spreading through Atlanta's forgotten corners. Amara's movement wasn't loud, but it was deep, reshaping how power worked, how people saw each other. "Take this lesson home," she said, her voice rising. "Listen to those you've overlooked. Their stories, their strength, can change your world." Her words hung in the air, a challenge and an invitation. Sarah nodded, her resolve firm. Nathan took a flyer, his hands steady. The young girl clutched her notebook tighter, her future brighter. Amara stepped back, her work just beginning, her heart full. This wasn't about her, it was about them, about a world where everyone could rise. If this story moved you, share it. Let's build a future where no one's left behind.